Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and it's indeed a pleasure to be able to join everyone here today to speak on Bill C-31, Protecting Canada's Immigration System Act. I want to thank the Minister of Immigration and Citizenship for not only bringing forward this much-needed act, but to being here in the House while the bill is being debated to answer the questions and to really explain what this act does entail and how it's going to improve upon the refugee claimant system that we have here in Canada. I also want to thank his parliamentary secretary for his work that he's done in carrying this bill and making sure that we have this fulsome debate here in a democratic process. You know, I hear often from constituents in my riding of Selkirk-Interlake how important it is that we fix the refugee system. We're always hearing the stories of people coming in and abusing the refugee system, taking dollars out of the Canadian taxpayers' hands and using it in ways that benefit only them personally and not broadening the economy or the culture of Canada. You know, there's been a number of emails that have been circulating on the internet that always find their way into our Member of Parliament offices, and it is about time that we address some of the concerns that constituents have had because of these emails that have been going through cyberspace, letters to the editors that have been written over the years, and address the whole situation of whether or not people are legitimate asylum seekers, and also look at the fact of how many dollars that are attributed to those individuals as they sit in the queue waiting to have their refugee claims heard, and whether or not they gain access to Canada or they're denied access and have to be returned to their country of origin. You know, nobody in this House, I think, can disagree that Canada has the most fair and generous immigration system in the world. And as I said, no one has tolerance, though, for the abuse that the Canadian refugee system has undergone over recent history. Now, people are thinking that our government is trying to crack down on refugees, is also going to be a crackdown on overall immigration. And I can tell you that is absolutely false. Since we've come to power, total immigration into Canada has gone up 15% on a year-over-year basis. And that has helped Canada in finding skilled workers, in finding people to work in our healthcare systems, to bring people into our communities and help us to continue to grow and prosper as a country. And there's no doubt that immigrants that have come to Canada and called it their home have contributed significantly to our economy and helped us to get through the economic downturn, Mr. Speaker. You know, and this bill is just a follow-up on what we've already done under Bill C-11, the Balanced Refugee Reform Act. And in that, and I think it hasn't been said enough in here, is that we've actually committed as a country to increasing the overall number of refugees that we take in every year by 2,500 refugees per year. That's almost a 10% increase of where we were last year. So that is still generous. That means that we're still reaching out to help those that are in need, and that we're going to help people that are in those situations in countries where they're being persecuted, where they're being prejudiced, where possibly they could be facing genocides and other atrocities, that they have the opportunity to come here to Canada. And we want to make it so it's faster for them to come through the system and get into safe asylum. Now, we're going to do that through a number of different ways. Now, we're going to establish the safe countries list. And really, by having a safe countries list, we hope to really reduce the backlog that we have today of over 42,000 refugees who are seeking asylum here in Canada. And so we want to make sure that we do that. This bill, Bill C-31, will reduce the overall processing time to 45 days for those people that are coming from the safe countries list. And right now, coming from those countries, we're seeing that averaging out at 1,038 days. So we are going to dramatically reduce that. The second thing, as it was already mentioned earlier from the member from Barrie, is that we are going to be bringing in biometrics. We're going to follow suit with what so many other countries have done, where we're going to bring in digital photographs and fingerprinting and opportunities for people that are seeking asylum to make those applications in their own countries at Canadian consulates and embassies, and get their names into the system along with that data, and that will expedite their process and allowing them to make those claims starting in their own countries even before they ever come to Canada. And the third important thing here is that we are going after the human smugglers. We don't want to see people profit by other people's disadvantage. We don't want people going out there and essentially extorting thousands of dollars from people to bring them to Canada, even though they come from countries where they can make those refugee claims, Mr. Speaker. So it's important that this bill does address that. You know, and as the Minister has already said, what we're really going after here is the actual bona fide asylum seekers rather than those who are just out to abuse our system. And, you know, we use the word bogus a lot. It gets thrown around. But there is those who absolutely abuse the system. And, you know, all you have to do is look at the facts that we're dealing with today. The European Union, you know, Western worldly countries, democracies with human rights, Mr. Speaker, and established rules of law. And yet the EU, the European Union, account for 14%. Or actually, they account for 23% of all claims coming to Canada. 23%. And that was 5,800 refugee claimants coming from the European Union in 2011. That's a 14% over 2010. And more importantly, that is more than we're getting from Africa and Asia, where we know that there is countries where they have dictators. We know where there's people that are being persecuted either because of their religious belief or because of their race, or that they're being disadvantaged because they are of the wrong gender. So it's just amazing that we're getting so many claims from the European Union. And out of those claims, and this is where the word bogus comes in, is that when they actually have to appear before the Immigration and Refugee Board, 95% of those claimants never even show up to defend their case. And essentially say, okay, sorry, we wasted your time, we've taken your money, but we're going to go back home now. And essentially what we're hearing is they're getting off the plane or they're getting off the boat, coming from countries like Hungary, the Roma in particular, and they say, okay, I'm a refugee, check please. You know, they're not even attempting to go through the process of proving that they are disadvantaged in the country that they reside. So Hungary, the Roma coming from Hungary are essentially 18% of all the claimants that Canada faces. So they're the large majority of those coming out of the European Union. And so that accounts for over 4,400 people. That's an increase of 50% from 2010. But last year, 4,400 people from Hungary tried to claim to be refugees here in Canada. You compare that to Belgium, you know, and this is the thing. In the European Union, people have the freedom to move without visas, without passports. So they get to go back and forth and work in each other's jurisdictions. So how can you be an economic refugee? How can you be a political refugee? How can you be persecuted under a system where you can go anywhere you want within the European Union, where we know there are some great democracies and leaders in human rights and the rule of law? And so what we got is that Belgium only received 188 people from Hungary in 2011. The U.S. only received 47 applications. France and Norway only received 33 each. And we're dealing with 4,400 refugee claimants from Hungary. How is that a fair system when you have people that are applying coming from legitimate countries where they want to get away from war, where they want to get away from government-forced famines, where they want to get away from being persecuted because of their religious beliefs? Now, Mr. Speaker, this is going to have a huge savings cost-wise for the Canadian taxpayer because we're going to remove these people that are just using the system. But more importantly, it's going to speed up the system and open the door for legitimate asylum seekers. And those are the ones that we want to reach out to. Those are the ones where we want to see our overall numbers increase by 2,500 refugees a year, and so that Canada's generosity, Canada's compassion will still be second to none to anyone here in the world, Mr. Speaker. Again, I congratulate the Minister and his department for their foresight, for going ahead and making these changes so that we can once and for all do away with a system that is broken and allow us to address the real needs of those seeking asylum around the world.
Question, un commentaire. Alors, la députée de Beauport.